I'm a guy that, unfortunately, I don't have many hobbies because I don't find hobbies beneficial. I'm wired to make things better, just period. If I'm not making things better, I'm bored. It's those kinds of things to make it easier for the next person to come by. That's just been inbred in me. And I think I just carry that everywhere I go. Not that I have to change everything, but I'm going to make it better than it was.
Hey there, business enthusiasts. Welcome to the Chills Podcast, brought to you by All Weather Roof. Because just like a sturdy roof, our conversations are built to last. I'm your host, Brent Loberg, and we're about to dive into the world of business, family, and the moments that give us those exhilarating chills. Ever wonder what keeps successful people inspired? Well, get ready to find out as we chat with some fantastic all-weather customers, partners, vendors, and friends. We'll explore their triumphs, challenges, and maybe even some unexpected secrets. After all, business is not just about numbers. It's about the people behind them. So grab your metaphorical popcorn and join us on this journey. Get ready to be inspired, maybe even get a few chills of your own. This is the Chills Podcast. Let the goosebumps begin.
Very good. Thank you very much. I'm Bob Lund. I've been in design and construction, commercial real estate almost my entire career. I've been blessed to have worked in 27 states in the U.S. plus India. Fortunately, I have a wife that's still married to me because of it. We had twins in Philadelphia. So I've worked for major companies, retailers, owners, developers. I've been an architect. I've been a site superintendent. I've been wickedly blessed with an incredible career, and I'm looking forward to telling you more.
Great. Are you from Minnesota originally?
No, I'm actually born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I've lived in a bunch of states even getting here. So I think I've lived in 9 total states. I don't know how many cities. In fact, I had friends of mine saying they were threatening to put a tracking collar on me because I haven't had so many addresses over my life.
So you said before, you asked how we initially came up with the podcast. And my idea for the podcast is our company does commercial roofing. So companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars, and instead of handing them a warranty at the end of a project, I wanted a way of kind of thanking them and getting their name out and kind of help their business. So that was kind of my idea for starting the podcast.
Appreciate that. That's really cool.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for coming in. So I guess let's start by telling the audience a little bit about your business and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
So right now I'm actually in transition, which is really interesting. I do have a consulting business, so I've been trying to get, kind of in-ring work. But my typical day-to-day job is leading a team in construction management, usually for a developer or owner. I've been, my last job was with Sherman Associates, phenomenal company doing multifamily. I was there for just 3.5 years and I started in their construction group, development group, and ended up running their facilities group. And what I liked about that role was leading a team. I've been leading teams probably since the 90s and really love that part. And the biggest part I love is seeing my team succeed. And I've often said that if I get recognition, that's a bad day because that means I'm not being a good leader and putting my team out front. And the other thing I've always said to my teams is that I got a strong personality, really clear on, direct or on goals. And oftentimes I said to them, look, if I hear you say, Bob said, I have failed as a leader because it shouldn't be about what I said. It should be what you are committed to do. And so it's really been fascinating, working across the country, building teams, creating teams, mentoring teams. And that to me is probably the best part of my job. Is just seeing people succeed and actually get uncomfortable, push them a little bit beyond their comfort zone. So they'll try something new. So they'll take a little bit of a risk. So they'll try to, do something a little bit better, a little different, or challenge the status quo. That to me is really what I love doing day to day, as well as the technical stuff. I'm a recovering architect with an MBA. So I don't know which side of the brain to use half the time. So the other part I love is wicked problem solving. What's the issue? What are we trying to accomplish? How can we get there better, cheaper, faster, and all those things? And so that's the other part of my job that I absolutely enjoy is, making sure that we're headed in the right direction, that our planning is well done. As I tell people, the planning is the hard part. Construction should be the easy part, because if it is, that means our plan's gone well. Our superintendents, our field folks know exactly what to do. They know the schedule, they know the obligations, and they'll succeed in delivering a product on time and on budget. And that's, what I've been trained to do, as well as been able to do for a bulk of my career, which is almost 40 years now.
Can you elaborate on what you said about leadership as far as if someone says, Bob said? Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. There's commitment versus compliant. And when somebody says Bob said, that to me is a compliant statement. In other words, Bob said, that usually means their heart's not in it, or they don't believe it, or they would rather do it a different way, or they feel compelled to do it a certain way. And that to me is not growth. That to me is not empowerment. That to me is not, being able to have a staff succeed and actually own the outcome. Okay. And so by commitment, meaning I've trained them with enough of a reasonable set of guardrails that they know what to do within this set of guardrails, and they're going to do it the way they think is best in the moment that they're dealing with it. I'm not in the weeds. Project manager, associate project manager, field superintendent, they're in the weeds. They need to know the outcome, but they're going to work within a certain range of options that they think are best. The other thing I don't do as part of this, I think that helps get a commitment, is I don't play the blame game. I don't care what happened. I care where we are now. What do we have? What do we know? What don't we know? Let's figure it out and move forward. We'll learn from this. It's always a goal to learn. And I think that also not playing the blame game, in addition to the commitment versus compliant, also leads teams to, and team or team members to excel, because they know that if they screw up, I got their back.
Got it. Okay. But it seems like leadership is a passion of yours.
Oh, yeah.
And I read in your bio that you worked for Target.
Yes, I did.
So how is leadership in a big company like that versus something like an entrepreneur where you're starting something on your own? Is it different, or?
It's very different. When you're an entrepreneur, I have my own consulting business for a while. And, and I love the work. I didn't love being alone. I love being part of a team. So that is a very different deal. You have to go chase the work. You have to set the vision. You have to, execute against your vision and drive the results. But you're always relying on somebody else's idea to execute against. At Target, being a matrix organization, you had so many different stakeholders, and you had to work within this matrix. So it was really, truly all about managing without authority. Because I had people in store planning and store design. I had operations people that we had to interface with. We had, vice presidents and SVPs and leaders, CEO even, all had kind of differing ideas. And our job in the project management group was to synthesize what was most important and help drive that single vision forward. So matrix organization is really interesting because there's a lot of check-ins, especially at Target. They're in some ways they're vertical, but in other ways they're dead flat. Everybody has a stake.
Okay, very cool. Anything else interesting going on with the family?
Not really. I mean, just other than he's home for the summer. She's still in Duluth working. They're going back to school in a couple of weeks. So that's a little tough when you're got twins. There's no practice kid when you go off to college, so they we get an empty nest immediately. But other than that, no. I think we've my son likes to tinker. He lifted his own Jeep and did all the work to it, new front suspension, everything else. I helped him. I was the lackey, but I have all the tools for it. I used to rebuild engines and all that kind of stuff in an earlier life, so I've done all that, brake jobs, drivetrain replacements, etc. And so I worked with him to rebuild his Jeep and lift it. It's absolutely fantastic. So that's one of the things we continue to do. And when our daughter comes next week, we're going to be replacing some of the front end parts on her Jeep. Yeah, it needs a bit of work. So, it's fun being able to do that kind of stuff with him.
What year Jeeps are?
I have a 2017 and a 2014 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.
Okay.
They're both the Sahara models. They're twins, so they're almost identical other than color.
Okay. I like it. How about, you talked a lot about leadership, which is great. Can you share any tidbit of advice with the audience about entrepreneurship or how starting your own business or running your own business?
Well, it's not for everybody. And I'm one of those guys that had on my bucket list to start my own business. And I realized that I'm really more of an integrator than I am a visionary. And so I think those are the two things. An entrepreneur requires a vision. It means he's got to find or she's got to find something that's not working out there and go fix it or go address it or go, make something better than what's out there in the marketplace. I'm not the visionary guy, I learned. I'm the guy that just gets stuff done. Okay. And so if you got an idea, I'll figure out how to get it done, period. And not that I can't be an entrepreneur, but I have to find folks to attach to that have the vision. And so when I work with folks, a lot of times in execution mode, those people with the vision couldn't manage their way out of a paper bag. Nope, not picking on them, but that's not their strength, nor should it be. They're out there going, what about this? What about that? Great example of that is George Sherman. George runs Sherman Associates. He is way beyond anybody about what could be. And, even though he's, almost 70, he just turned 70, his ideas are so fresh. And so I love it when I was working there, because I could listen to him and say, okay, that's what that looks like. Here's how we're going to get there. Here, George, here's what it's going to take. Here's what it's going to cost. Here's how long it's going to take. Are you okay with that? Yeah, go get it done. He's gone. He's on to the next idea. Is those kinds of people that, the entrepreneur world, that really need to learn at what scale do you need to bring in that person that's going to, be, quote, overhead, the chief operating officer or the office manager or the person that's going to take the day to day. I was just meeting with a colleague, and her mom has a business, and the daughter was asking, so if you build all these folks that are on automatic payment, I just want to get out there, So that was not part of her DNA. She's an entrepreneur, but getting the billing out was not her forte. So you need to hire a CPA or somebody else to support that. Those are the kinds of things I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have to be able to discern, at what point do you bring in support help that's quote unquote overhead. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs wait too long in order to get to that support level, whether it be a fractional, CMO, marketing person, or a CFO, or, some fractional person that's helping 10 hours a week. They need to be forthright with themselves that they're not capable of doing that, nor is that their best use of their time.
Okay. It sounds like you have a knack for maybe hiring also.
Yes, I do.
Putting people in the right positions. I love that. The last year, 2 years, hiring's been pretty tough for all industries.
Yep.
Do you have any recommendations or ideas for the audience on hiring?
Hiring, I think first and foremost, it's making sure you hire the right personality. And I think you can read about this and see this all the time. I would rather hire ability than technical skills. I can teach most technical skills as long as. So from a hiring perspective, I think we have to get away from, tell me a time when, kind of thing, and really listen more to, I'll talk about my industry, in particular project management. One of the things that I've learned about project managers is they better be curious. How does that work? Why does that work that way? What? Tell me more, right? They need to be curious. The second thing they need to be is organized, right? They have to be able to take all this crazy information and put it in a format that's digestible. So how do you find somebody that gets the big picture, yet can get down to 5 feet, get down to the minutia, but still not lose sight of the big picture? And then I think the third thing is just collaboration. How well do you interface with others? How respectful are you of others? That's a trait you cannot teach. I think you either have it or you don't. And so I think that collaboration and respect for others and respect for others' opinions is really, really important. The other thing I've learned about being a project manager, and this was taught to me early in my career at Opus, you never said no to anybody. You said, yes, let me look into that and get back to you. And you always came back with what the business impact was for a change or this decision or this direction you want to go. Instead of saying, no, I can't do that. That just turns people off. So I think that's another thing about how people handle saying no when they shouldn't say no. How do you say yes, but without using the but? That to me is another skill that I've seen successful in being able to drive client relationships forward, in order to be able to educate, in order to be able to explain why it costs an extra $1 million, or why it takes an extra 6 weeks, or why do you have to pick the wall covering out now when you're not installing it for another 6 months? Well, because it has a 16-week lead time, and we have to get in our procurement pipeline, and especially late. So back to the question about hiring, it's really about the ability to discern and the ability to be resilient. How do you lift yourself back up from defeat? Not, can I process an Excel spreadsheet? Can I, do this particular software program? That's a skill you can train if they're curious and want to learn.
Yep. Got it. I like it. You're very good at this, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I've been at it for a while. I've been very blessed with mentors. I could tell you story after story about people that have invested in me. From my very second boss, even my first boss out of grad school, all the way through to, some folks I've been able to network with, recently or mentor with, or even some employees that have challenged me respectfully. If you noticed, hopefully I'm a kind of a strong personality. And I've always told all my staff, look, if I get ahead of myself, or if I'm overwhelming you, you have permission to kick me in the shins. Well, that's figuratively, right? Well, actually, in one of my staff meetings when I was in Boston leading this team at 20, one of my staff, the least likely to do so, literally kicked me in the shins.
Under the table?
Under the table. The team lost it because they knew exactly what happened. I'm laughing because it was just priceless, because the person you thought least likely to really create or, do something like this did.
Yep.
So I felt like a phenomenal leader that she felt comfortable literally kicking me in the shins.
I'm glad it wasn't a woman, by the way.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it is, because that team was 13 females and 7 males, all in the construction industry.
I love it.
And so, and the average age was under 30. And so it was just a great team. They got it. They worked their tough butts off. And I was honored, and especially I'm still laughing to this day. And that was probably almost 8 years ago. I was still laughing because it was just so hysterical in the moment and perfect, because I was getting ahead of myself and I was overwhelming, and I'm going, got it.
Yep. I love it. It's a great story. So what in your business or entrepreneurial life gives you the chills? Like the hair stands up in the back of your neck, up on your arms in a good way, that good feeling?
Two things. When somebody succeeds, when one of my staff members goes beyond what they thought or challenges me. I can tell you a number of stories where I've been challenged by my staff saying, time out, try something different. And I love that. Getting the feedback from staff. I get the chills when somebody feels confident to do that. The other time I get chills is, here's an example. I've always, it seems like if you look back on my career history, every 2.5, 3 years, I end up with a new job. Whether it's within the same company, whether it's, creating my own job, whether I've been tapped to do something or been pulled forward. I've been so blessed that even since grad school, I've almost always been pulled for the next job. Until 13, there was a riff at Target. I was one of 1,700 people let go. And ever since then, it's been a little bit harder, partly because I think I'm a little older, and also, but because I think that the market's just different. And also, I've been wickedly blessed to be in multiple careers. Nobody can really pigeonhole me. And so I think the second thrill is that, here's an example. I've always trained my replacement. I've always been kind of thinking that. And Gary Drumheller was one of my senior PMs in Philadelphia. And I knew eventually we were going to end up back in Minnesota. Remember, I mentioned that, my wife's from Minnesota. And so I trained him. And I get this call about 6 months later. And in the opening line of the call is from Gary. Hey, Gary. He goes, I don't hate you anymore. I go, what? He goes, remember all the times I'd come into your office and you would ask 3 questions and send me back out with my tail between my legs? Well, I didn't put your tail between your legs, but yeah, I get it. Yep. He says, I got to do that today. It was awesome.
You treated him.
Yes. So just seeing him call me up and excited to be a leader that can ask the right questions and get somebody else to learn. I'm getting goosebumps right now because he just elevated, right? He just stepped in and kind of saw what I did. It took it to his heart. And he was able to do that now as a leader. And he was thrilled that he could impart knowledge in a different way. I took one of the other ones of my great stories is Stephanie McCorkle down in Phoenix. She was an admin for me on a project. I was doing a $100 million mixed-use development downtown Phoenix. I was the senior PM. I had staff of project managers, superintendents. It was like I said, a huge project right in the downtown. But Stephanie was my admin, and I just watched her operate. And she had so many skills beyond being administrative. And so I pushed her to become a project manager, and she was terrified. I said, Stephanie, you're gonna knock this out of the park, So I greened her and got her into position. I actually moved then to San Francisco for Opus. She stepped in as APM role, became a PM within a couple of years, and then I went back to Chicago, worked for her dad's firm, which had project managers. She ended up running her dad's company. Wow. We keep in contact. It's just fantastic to see somebody like that where I could see in her what she didn't believe she had.
Yes.
And then being able to comfortably shove her, into an uncomfortable zone and then see her succeed. And that to me is another story, like that. I have more than those. But that's just two.
See the passion.
Yeah, it's just, that's really cool for me. And it's back to, how do I make sure the team I'm leading feels recognized and feels supported, and be able to put them on the pedestal, not me. And that to me is a thrill when I see somebody stepping out, or going into a discussion, knowing it's a hard discussion, and they come out with an outcome that's acceptable or successful, and I didn't have to step in. And oftentimes, another way I do this is, I tell my staff, they're having interpersonal issues with another department, another person, whatever. And I say, here's some suggestions. I said, if you want me to step in, I will, but you're going to tell me who I'm talking to and what I'm saying. You need to write my script. And it's really interesting. Often the situation gets resolved. It's almost like I'm the easy button that never gets used. And it's just fantastic when you see your team step into a hard situation, personal conflict, whatever, and able to find a way to make it work without, being able to have to call me in. And that to me is a thrilling day.
Fun. I like it. Without ever meeting your kids, I can tell you have great kids.
Unfortunately, yes, we do. We are very, very blessed with that. They were preemies because they're twins, which is another interesting thing. We've been wickedly blessed with some cool kids. Yeah, I got a wife that's got street smarts beyond belief. I'm book smart. She's street smart, and she's taught them all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how they do it, but obviously that's coming from your side.
Yeah. Give me a chilled moment in your family life.
Boy, again, it's so many. I suppose it's my son getting his commercial pilot's license. That's the most recent one.
Yeah.
And just seeing his grin, his absolute just grin on making this huge milestone to go from, a student to a private pilot's license to a legitimate commercial pilot's license, and actually getting his new document from the FAA that shows he's a commercial pilot. And then just my daughter, most recently, I mentioned that she's working this summer. I can hear her grinning on the phone anytime she talks to me about this job. She's out with the guys, she weighs $145, and she's moving 180 pounds of product on a dolly in and out of these stores. She's very athletic. She played soccer and lacrosse. Both my twins played soccer and lacrosse growing up. And, just the stories and the what she's learning every day, and just not only about people, but the business, and how you deal with, cranky, people in the store that, like whatever, or how you organize and how you do returns, and how you manage all the paperwork, and how you make sure that the inventory is correct, both coming in and going out, how you make sure the oldest product is out front, how do you merchandise? And she, every time I talk to her, she said, her closing phrase is always, I'm having so much fun. And so just to see her find a niche, and to see her just excel in a field job, which I think is invaluable for anybody, back to hiring, those that work in the field, I think have so much of a different appreciation when they move into the office.
Sure.
They know what it's like to be out there. They know the pitfalls. They know the gripes that we hear. I was a superintendent for a while. Well, man, I learned a lot, and then therefore I make sure documentation is a little bit differently. Same with her. She's been in the field delivering all this stuff, and the sales guys drive her nuts. Yet she wants to be one of those sales guys in the future. So she's going to remember all this and say, no, I'm going to walk the store. I'm going to make sure it's okay. I'm going to make sure we don't over-deliver or under-deliver. I'm going to make sure that we have a thoughtful, logical way actually to do business. So for those that are new in any industry, getting some field experience, whatever that is really important. Now, my son, for example, the other thing too that he does is he actually works for Beta Bay Boat Club as one of the dock hands, and he's now leadership. He's now actually, because of his mechanical inclination, he's helping the mechanic change oil, change props, rebuild this, rebuild that, etc. So he's doing more than just his job because they trust him to do these other mechanical things that require some level of expertise. And so I'm just seeing, I think, them grow in their own individual ways is also another kind of a chill moment.
Okay, love it. What other hobbies do you have besides like restoring shoes?
I'm a guy that, unfortunately, I don't have many hobbies because I don't find hobbies beneficial. I'm wired to make things better, just period. If I'm not making things better, I'm bored. And so what I'm doing around the house, I do a lot of stuff around the house. My son and I just cut down a tree, for example, that had gone its life. I work in the yard a lot. I'm always repairing something in the house or rebuilding something or whatever. So my passion's about keeping things looking fantastic and, rebuilding this or replacing that. I can't tell you how many dimmer switches I've replaced and how many, light fixtures I've replaced and, those kinds of things. So that's what, my hobby really is. But I think my real hobby though is helping others succeed.
Yeah.
That to me is whether it's my kids or my wife or coworkers or colleagues or people I'm networking with, I want to see them succeed. I want to give them tools for success. So for me, that is my gift, I guess, is giving back out to those that have given to me.
Okay. And where did you find that?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, my dad, I don't want to say literally, but almost beat into me. You always leave things better than you found them. So anytime we borrowed a tool or anytime he may have borrowed a truck or I borrowed a truck, it was washed full of gas when it was returned. It was always better than we found it. And I've always kept that going. So I borrowed a neighbor's chainsaw, I don't know how many years ago, and I brought it back brand new. It was looking brand new, totally cleaned up. Everything was filled, all that kind of stuff. It's just one of those things that, is always leave things better than you found them. Walking in downtown Minneapolis, there's all these scooters that are everywhere, right? I'll be walking along. If one is perpendicular to the sidewalk, I'm going to turn it parallel to the sidewalk so nobody trips. Okay. It's those kinds of things to make it easier for the next person to come by. Sure. That's just been inbred in me. And I think I just carry that everywhere I go. Not that I have to change everything, but I'm going to make it better than it was. I was hired at Target. I mean, out of most of my roles, 10 of the times I've been a change agent as well. So Bob, while you're running this $150 million business, why don't you go ahead and fix this process or fix this program or fix this? So I've been doing that since the middle of the 90s. And so this change agent, how to make things better and more efficient, more effective, put people in the right place. That happened to me as well. I had a team I inherited in Northern California. I had a team of 35, ended up getting rid of 15 and hiring 20 all in 8 months. And we were profitable 18 months later. And so just putting the right people in the right seat and setting expectations extremely clear. That to me is what I'm all about. So that even with my kids, it's setting the expectations. No, my wife has a great saying, do your best no matter what you do. That's on our whiteboard at our kitchen where she puts out the weekly calendar. Do your best no matter what you do. And I think my wife's belief and my belief, leave things better than you found them, are two things that we live by.
Sure. That reminds me of one of the things that I teach our kids, and my wife and I teach our kids is like, let's say we have them go down and clean the basement. They come up and say, all right, we're done, Dad, Mom. I say, okay, go down and ask yourself how you can do it just a little bit better. But I kind of remind them,
Yeah, that's perfect, right? That's perfect. Did you really do, what was expected? Did you really put your best into it? Yeah. And I think that teaching pride of ownership, I think is huge and good for you. Congratulations. That's a great way to teach.
Yeah, I like it. What you just said reminded me of how you train your replacement. You're training them to be maybe just a little bit better than you were.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, it's surround yourself with people smarter than you. I'm just trying to find. My goal is typically to remove hurdles and be support. I got your back. And what do I see as hurdles? What are you seeing as hurdles? Is it tools? Is it equipment? Is it process? Is it people? Is it if you're not doing the right thing? And you feel and something's off, tell me about it. Let's have a discussion. I've always told my entire staff, if you're frustrated with something, I'd rather you scream at me in my office than scream at the problem. And it's interesting how they've come in and done that. Yeah. Bob, do you have a few minutes so I can scream? Absolutely. I drop everything I'm doing and I sit, and it's just fantastic to see them be vulnerable, knowing that what stays in Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas kind of mentality, that I'm just trying to let them vent at me because I should be safe. If I'm not a safe boss, then I'm probably not a good boss either.
Yeah, very good. I like it. Yeah, invaluable information here.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. I've been wickedly blessed, like I said, with so many mentors and so many folks that have taken an interest in bettering me. From the way I interact with people to teaching me the ropes. My second boss out of grad school, I was at the Chrysler Corporation. If you believe it, I have a bachelor's in architecture, master's in architecture, and an MBA. My first job is actually a financial analyst with the Chrysler Corporation.
Wow.
And I was hired for double the pay I would get being an architect. And what was interesting is that they hired me because I could do design speak. Also, I grew up on Mopar, so it was fun to go to work for Chrysler. And Iacocca was there at the time. It was amazing. Bill Server was his name, and he never talked on the phone to anybody. He would walk and go find them. And the building we were in was 4 blocks long and 3 stories tall. We had the engineering group, we had the modeling group, we had the product planning group. I ended up moving to product planning from finance. I ran the Dodge Ram pickup program before it came out in '93. Oh, wow. So that was an absolute riot too. And he would always walk to wherever the people were. And we never had a meeting in his office. He always sat in my cube. And just watching him put him in my shoes and watching him just meet with people and talk with people and interact with people was just absolutely fantastic. And I think that really taught me the value of sitting with people. And then later in life, I understood why. When I was later in one of the seminars I was in, there was a class talking about communication. Communication is made up of 3 components: the words, the tone, body language. And this stat's been around for 20, 30 years. It may have changed recently with COVID, but I think it's still relevant. The words are only 7% of the message. So imagine sending a text or Gmail or email. You're only sending 7% of the message. I don't care how many emojis you put behind it. It's still only 7% of the message. Tone is only 38% of the message. So those two together aren't even half the message. So even on a phone call, I can be sweet as pie, but ticked off because my pacing, right?
Sure.
And the pacing says something totally different than talking sweetly on the phone. And I had a boss that was a master at that. He could be on the phone and I could see him. He's livid, but he's talking on the phone like, is there a problem, Dave? Something's not jiving here, right? The other 55% is body language. And so I think by Bill Server putting himself in front of people, he got the whole message and he could provide the whole message. And so I think, I pull that forward all the time too. Every time my staff is struggling, I go, okay, how many emails have we exchanged? 3. Would you go find the person, go talk to them? At a minimum, pick up the phone, even though that's only half the message. It's amazing how fast things get resolved when you just don't send the words.
Okay, I like that. So this Chrysler thing and where did the Jeeps come into play?
Oh, the Jeeps came into play. So I was working in Boston, and my family hadn't moved out yet. And I get this phone call. I've been out there since February. It's now April. The twins are going to be 14. And they say, Mom, I know you need to get a new car. We should probably get something that's pretty safe. So the twins convinced my wife that they should get a Jeep Wrangler. And so I get this phone call, and I get this, and the opening line is, "We've decided." And I'm going, who's this we?
This from my wife?
Yeah, my wife. Okay. So the 3 of them are now telling me that they're going to get a Jeep Wrangler. And I love it because, they only go out 98 miles an hour and they're built like tanks. Yeah. So, that was fine. So they bought a Jeep Wrangler. Well, fast forward now, they're about 15 and a half. It's becoming really evident that they are not going to be able to share a vehicle. They will kill each other. So I went online and I knew that she'd like this one blue color one. So there's in 2014-15, there's this blue color that's just striking. So I found one in New York and state and had it shipped here. It surprised her just before her 16th birthday so that those 2 didn't have to share a vehicle. So that's how we fell into that. We wanted a safe vehicle for our twins to drive that multiplied into 2 because of this thing called twin equity. You have to have everything identical, or if there is just an absolute battle. I don't care if they're boy, girl.
So then your boy drove the one you got for your wife?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the one, it's lifted, it's white. He's got, 33-inch tires on it, better rims, all new front suspension, heavy duty. He's put in locking differentials in it, new lighting systems. It's just crazy. Daughter just likes to drive, so it's just pretty stock, so.
Make it better than you found it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I like it.
I love it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think that unless you have anything else that you wanted to, we missed. Or?
I don't think so. I think I've touched upon, kind of the big points I wrote down. I've been wickedly blessed. I can't say that enough with people that have invested in me, people that have paid me forward, people that have thrown me into situations and moved me around the country. I got recruited back to Opus after being gone for 5 years. And then they moved me to these different, they also nicknamed me Red Adair because I was always putting out these fires at some different area of the country. But I got moved to Phoenix, got moved to San Francisco, got moved to Philadelphia, all for different reasons.
Sure.
And then I got moved to Target for another reason, from a standpoint of some processes were not working well. And the multiple other companies as well, saying, oh, by the way, while you're doing your day job, and we're going to invest in you to fix this other issue. Oh. And so again, people trusting in me that I will step in and look at it and go, okay, all right, let's try this, right? So I can't say enough about how lucky I've been and blessed I've been to have the career I've had because it was never planned. And so I think I'll just close with that. Just be open to opportunities, willing to be flexible and willing to go beyond your comfort zone.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Fun. This has been a blast. I appreciate it very much.
It's really fun. Learned a lot today.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap, folks. A huge thank you to our incredible guests and, of course, All Weather Roof for making this podcast possible. If you enjoyed these conversations as much as we did, don't forget to hit subscribe and share the chills with your fellow business aficionados. Remember, it's not just about business, it's personal, and it's all about the people. Stay inspired, chase those dreams, and let the chills guide you. Till next time, this is Brent, signing off from the Chills Podcast. Catch you on the flip side.